Hello, everybody. Welcome to the History News Live. It's Monday, 3rd of July. It's just gone 8:30. I am very pleased to see people coming in. Let's say hello. Hello, Elverta. Oh, sounds very warm where you are. It's finally cooled down a bit here, which I'm very grateful for because I've been very warm. I haven't even got the fan on today, so that's frankly miraculous. JT, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And oh, hello, Deborah. Thank you for joining. Jessie, warm where you are too. Wow, wow. Yes, indeed. Hi, Liz. And Laurie, hello. Hello, Alexia from New York. Welcome. Hello, Steve. And Shane. Oh, big jump. Hello. Big jump. Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm so pleased to see so many of you in the chat. Looking forward to discussing history news. We have got a lot to discuss. If you are joining us live, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us. I am going to try and motor through as much as possible while also having some fun. If you are watching us on the playback, thank you very much for taking the time to watch us on the playback. As per usual, we do have today an update. We have some repatriation / decolonization news. We have some new news. We do have some ding dong, and we also have a discussion of events and exhibitions that have caught my eye and that you have sent to me. All of the articles are listed on the Opera Pinboard, which is tagged in the description box. Also in the description box are a list of the articles that we will be looking at today. You will notice that in the description box, those articles are numbered. When we get into the slideshow that's about to start, you will spot that at the bottom of the slides, there is a number. That number correlates to the numeric list that is in the description box. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who sent me articles today. For today, as I say every time, I am always so chuffed that people spot a history news item, that they then take the time to send it to me. I am receiving loads by email. My email is listed in my description box. It is reading the past with Dr. Cat at gmail.com. I'm also getting some linked and tagged on Twitter. I'm just going to say I am at some point going to be sorting out a way to submit these news items that is just more cohesive. I am going to put out a personal plea that stuff seems to be happening with Twitter, with limiting of what you can read and stuff. We don't know what's going on. It could potentially be a screaming dumpster fire at any point. So I would suggest that maybe we move to email, but in the not too distant future, I am going to try and figure out some kind of form-based submission. Thank you so much, T's Hot Mess History. That's really kind of you. I'm so glad that you enjoy the content, and thank you for being able to catch this live and for let's have a great chat about the history news. Pretty Pic. Apparently Reddit also on the wonk. I don't spend time on Reddit. I've heard it's scary over there. In the same way that there were other sites that sounded scary. Reddit sounds frightening, so I avoid. But yes, so I don't know what's happening with Twitter. I'm afraid of it currently. So, Pretty Pic, are we discussing a reading the past Discord? It's been in discussions. I'm going to be honest with you. I've heard of Discord. I have had people reach out to me telling me they'll explain Discord to me. I am very up for learning about it. Currently, I have no bandwidth to learn new things. None. I am floating by on hope and a prayer, and I don't have the brain hole space to learn how to use Discord. I will, but I need to not be doing 85 different other things to try and figure it out. So With that being said, friend, let me jump into my thank yous and then let's hop right in to the news. Jarrett, the best place to make a suggestion of history news items at the moment is to send it via email. As I said, that is reading the past with drcat at gmail.com. In the not too distant future, she says, crossing her fingers and hoping, there is going to be a form. I'm going to make something. I say I'm going to make it. I'm going to make my husband make something that will allow me to get submissions. And also, somehow, hope he has a plan for a database so we can also have a checklist of what's already been submitted as well. And if you want to go back and check things, it will be there. So that's going to be what's happening. Right. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very pleased to take lots of advice. I am just in the same way I've had people offer to edit my videos. I am a control freak. So I need to understand the ins and outs of Cat's backside of all of this stuff before I go, yes, please, because I have zero idea of what Discord is or how it functions. So before I start using it, or before I start launching it as a kind of reading the past thing, I need to know every single way that it works. When my son is old enough to have social media, he will not have anything that I don't fully understand because I am, as I said, a rabid control freak. But at least I'm honest about it. At least I own it. I'm not delusional enough to know that I'm not a control freak. So anywho, let's hop in to the thank yous. There we go. I need to say a massive thank you to my husband's just messaged me. There we go. I'm not gonna repeat that. He's a dirty man. I need to say a massive thank you to Archeanna, to Steve, to Name Twin Cat, to nearly named Twin Kate. If you ask some of my neighbours, they do believe that's my name. To Kelly, Jessie, Joseph, Becky, Kenny, Karolyn, Yvonne, Elverta, Felem, Anne, Mary, Terra, Verity, Jennifer, Tracy, and Pretty Pic. Thank you ever so much for all of the time you've taken to send me these news items. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. Jenny, we talked about Cromwell's Book of Hours in fortnight ago's history news. And I'm incredibly excited because the team at Heaver are fabulous. Make sure you are following them on their social media. And also, there is a great documentary on History Hit. If you aren't already subscribed to that, I do have links in my videos. So if you do read in the past 30, you can get a discount on your History Hit subscription. And also, you can see about the discovery of the Book of Hours. Right, let's hop into. I have the one update. I'm just going to hop straight into that. And this is a link to a YouTube video. This is about those French prehistoric standing stones that we heard about or that was reported had been destroyed for a DIY store. These prehistoric 7,000-year-old stones, the way it was presented was essentially like France's Stonehenge had been absolutely smashed to smithereens. Well, according to this video by the prehistory guys, and it's a great video. It seems incredibly well researched. I think it's got lots of nuance in it. It's definitely worth checking out. It all does not seem to be the way it was presented in those news items. I do tend to be, I try and be careful when it comes to the news items that I share that have been shared with me. Like, for example, if I don't recognize a publication, I will put everything through bias check to try and see what its accuracy levels are, where it sits politically, that kind of thing. And I'll be honest, the stuff I do it with every news item, and this one didn't flag. So I sort of thought that I was gonna I thought it was sort of well researched, well laid out. Turns out perhaps not so much. It apparently, from what these guys are saying, this notion of there being 39 stones that are 7,000 years old that have been in the location they've been in until Monsieur Bricolage came along doesn't seem to be quite what's happening. It instead seems that what's gone on is there were some stones that may have been prehistoric that themselves had already been moved, perhaps as some kind of borderline or wall created by farmers. So that then the site for Monsieur Bricolage has now moved again. So there had already been whatever there was there. If these were prehistoric stones, whatever location and setup they were in, it does seem somewhat that they had already been moved. So yes, and what's quite upsetting is it does seem like there have been some reprisals that the mayor who I mean, I've certainly said, if Mr. Bricolage is responsible for this, I think we should boycott them because I'm of the impression that if a big industry and something that has lots of kind of financial backing, if they are responsible for something that I think is unfair, then for me, the way you show that you think it's unfair is you vote with your wallet. What I don't think is supportable is sending threats to the mayor of the village, vandalizing important areas in that town. Like that's not okay. But apparently that is what's been happening. So yeah, it's I'm definitely going to be more careful with the stories that I find, particularly ones that create outrage, because unfortunately, I do realize that we are living in a time where outrage media and rage farming, shall we say, are the order of the day to get clicks and views. It's the new clickbaiting, of course, is rage farming. And I'll be honest, when I saw these items about the 39 ancient stones, I was infuriated. It did its job. And it's people are talking about it being lazy journalism. And yeah, maybe it is lazy journalism, but it's also there is a coded desire. And I think it's part of a growing something to discuss. It's part of a growing discussion about historical preservation in light of things like repatriation we talk about and the interest in that, but also in light of things like what's happening in Ukraine and the questions about the things that are being destroyed there because of the conflict. So this is all front and center, and the people responsible for making those headlines and for writing those articles, they're journalists. Research is their job. So to make it seem like it was something that was worthy of the level of outrage that I certainly felt, I think is by design. There's a potential that it isn't incompetence, it is connivance, and so I'm going to be more careful, much more careful about this thing. So anyway, we are now on to the decolonization news, and perhaps you saw this. This was all over my Twitter and social media. Certainly, this is the story. In fact, I saw it on Twitter first. This is before the limiting of reading tweets. I'm not paying for Twitter. I'm not doing it. A translator has called out the British Museum, and apparently, she has said that in their exhibition called China's Hidden Century, translations that she has made have been used without her being credited, which is problematic, and it's potentially symptomatic of a wider issue that I do know it goes on in institutions, that it's not simply a case that there are artifacts in the museums that need to be repatriated and that the spaces need to be decolonized. The spaces need to be decolonized by recognizing the labor and paying for the labor from individuals who are from the global majority, people whose labor and work you are using to make your exhibition what it is, do need paying for that work. And it is that this is an issue that happens far too often, and there is a lot of people on museum boards who speak to or who seek out the stories, labours and artifacts of individuals and talk about things like exposure or the importance of telling the story and the importance of retaining the narrative. Well, if it's that important, pay them. Pay them for their stories. Do you know what I mean? And it happens a lot. And if I hear about it happening and I see a credible source about it, I will call out every institution that I hear about that happening with. Because if you are going to if you're going to work in decolonization, pay people. So there was an update on Twitter, and she said that a person working for the museum had reached out to apologize, but neither of the organizers had apologized. They offered to send her a permission form, and she's asked them for a list of places where the translations appears. They're looking into it. She said they were at this point, she's waiting for more news. Then there was another update. Quote, "We will not be reinstating the translations in the exhibition that have been removed following your complaint. Therefore, you will not be acknowledged in the exhibition as your work will not be featured." So you're telling me that that study formed no part of the display. Interesting. So this is because she's working. This is her area of study, and so she was looking into the exhibition because it's her area of study. And then they must have been a terrible shock to see her work, her translations there. We have a statement from the British Museum saying it takes copyright permission seriously. And let me be clear: if you published a book or an article and you use something from the British Museum's archives, one of their pictures of one of their items, and you did not credit them, trust and believe they would hunt you to the ends of the earth for that copyright. Trust and believe. The quote continues: "Across the range of our work, we make every effort to contact the owners of rights in text, image, print, digital media. This was a particularly complicated project, and we recognise we made an inadvertent mistake and fell short of our usual standards." It added that, quote, "China's Hidden Century had involved more than 400 people from 20 countries. How many were paid? I'd love to know. And that those involved had, quote, spent years together with scholars worldwide putting it together." And here's the deal. These are people who are involved in scholarship at the level where they're being asked to curate and work on a museum like this absolutely know how to cite their sources. Absolutely know. There is, as somebody who has done a BA, MA, and a doctorate, you know how to cite your sources. You may use different methodologies, you may use different ways in which to lay those sources out, but you know how to cite them. Absolutely. So the translator Wang said that the scope of this project is essentially causing her to ask, how does this happen? She points out that it was funded by a research grant that was over 700,000 British pounds. The researchers had almost 4 years to do the research. They had gathered translations and created all these different formats. This exhibition has been open for multiple weeks, and no one thought to be like, where are these translations from? You know they're from somewhere because you didn't craft them. So that's, yeah. There's now a social media campaign known as #NameTheCreator that's been building steam in recent years. I'm sure it has become even more steam filled since this news has come out. And so she says, quote, "When I'm translating, I'm using my knowledge of poetry in English. I'm using my knowledge of classical Chinese literature. I'm doing background research on the poet and on the time period that Cui Jin was writing in. I'm also often going through 10 to 15 drafts of the same poem to find the right words, the right expression, the most eloquent way of translating idioms and allusions, the right way to capture the spirit and emotional power of the poetry rather than a word-by-word translation, which would not, of course, be poetic. This is it's a rewrite, it's an adaptation, it's translating poetry to get the sense and feeling is so much labor. Translating in general is labor, but to translate poetry is graft, full graft. she continues, I would urge the British Museum to come negotiate with me in good faith, that they'd be more apologetic. It's really important to have discussions about copyright, about crediting translators' labour, and about making sure this does not happen again and taking the steps to correct it properly. All your archive professors have always stressed how important it is to pay and credit people. Of course they will have. And you know what else is hilarious? If you are doing any kind of subject study, objects, or person study, any kind of interaction as part of your doctorate, if you are conducting interviews with people, the amount of ethics and ethics forms that you have to fill in, they know. Just to speak to a person, to use that in your research, you have to have a full-blown discussion of the ethical ramifications. So there we go. The British Museum apparently offered to pay her after she had said that this is my work, and they said, quote, that this is unintentional human error. They offered financial payment for the period the translations appeared in the exhibition, as well as for the continued use of quotations from their translations in the exhibition catalogue, because they've taken it down from around the displays, but it's of course still in the exhibition catalogue. So oopsie. The catalogue includes the acknowledgement of their work now, I assume, right? Because if it was there before, then how come it's not on the walls? So after the plagiarism allegations, the British Museum also said its staff, who spent years working on the project, had been subjected to personal attacks on social media, which is not cool. They said, quote, this is unacceptable. It is through their scholarship and efforts and those of their collaborators that we've been able to present this period of Chinese history through people-centered stories to the thousands visiting the China's Hidden Century temporary exhibition at the British Museum. We stand behind our colleagues fully and request those responsible for these personal attacks desist as we work with Yilin Wang to resolve the issues they have raised concerning the use of their translations within the exhibition. Look, personal attacks and threats, it's not conducive. I don't know what the answer is when an institution that has continuously acted in what I would see as poor faith and with a degree of indulged, self-satisfied exceptionalism. If it were another institution that doesn't have the legacy of Benin bronzes, pharaohs, etc., 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 then maybe there would be a degree of forgiveness. But the British Museum is already on people's it's their antennas are already wiggling. It's not cool to threaten anybody. I don't know what the answer is. I would say that I don't also think that asking nicely and politely gets people anywhere, because they get ignored or fobbed off, don't they? So I don't know what the answer is. And I feel that it must be very hard to be somebody who works at the British Museum, particularly if you did not know this was happening. It must be very hard to have those kinds of attacks against you. But equally, it must be hard to have the work that you've put together for your entire career used without your permission, without being paid. So that's an interesting suggestion, that the person who made this mistake was likely an exhibit designer, not an academic, but it definitely shouldn't have happened. I mean, the thing is that anything that goes on in the exhibition, they they know that in that case, whoever it is, they as exhibition designers have also done, in the most part, higher level study. They've also filled in essays where they've had to cite their sources. So they did know that they didn't make the translations up themselves. And also, I would say that if it was my exhibition, but as I said, I'm a control freak, I'd be asking, oh, whose translation is that? It's really beautiful. Yeah, Yvonne, that doesn't shock me either, because the reason why I think stuff like this happens is because there is, although they do know better, there is a cultural problem at play in the ivory tower, shall we say. Yeah. Because also, here's the other thing. If you are working in heritage and you're serious about decolonization and you are also serious about diversity and inclusion, then if what you are offering as a way to get your foot in the door are unpaid internships, the only people that can afford to do that are people that come from family money. Where is the diversity in that? If everybody needs to have been born with or come up with a silver spoon in their mouth, that's not diversity. Pay people. Pay people. Yes, welcome, welcome. Sorry. Yes, we are. There's this. It's not going to get. It's not going to get better. This will be. This we're going to be doing this for a while. I have a feeling. I hope at one point we stop it, having to talk about it, but I can't see it happening anytime soon. So, Julia Lovell, Professor of Modern Chinese History and Literature at Birkbeck University, who's one of the principal researchers on the exhibition, told The Guardian she was, quote, in full sympathy with Miss Wang's anger. She'd been in contact with a translator to apologise for the error. She said while she was not involved in any design or permission aspects of the project, including with regards to the Jin installation, the use of quotations in the exhibition, and she recognised that what happened was very wrong. Quote, it was a genuinely accidental, unmalicious human error amid a very complex project, for which the British Museum have apologised profusely and sincerely and sought to make amends. Yesterday, Wang posted on Twitter that the British Museum had told her it would not be reinstating her translations in the exhibition. Look, I am not a PR expert, but here's what I would do if I was in charge of this and it was a genuine mistake. I would do whatever I could. I think also museums just need to get better at managing cancellation and crisis, and they need a team that are dealing with that better than is happening. Because here's my free advice to the British Museum. Here's what I would have done. I would have found a way to reach out to Miss Wang. I would have said, what's happened here is unacceptable. How can we make it right in a way that serves both of us and also serves the wider conversation? Here's my suggestion, and feel free to negotiate. We come to terms in how we reimburse you for the fact that we have done this. So we don't just pay you a translator's fee. We also put a little bit extra because it's a snafu, right? We did a bad, and we need to compensate you for that. On top of it, please could we pay you to come in and talk about this with our team? Could we also pay you to do an evening event, an evening lecture on things like the process of translation? And I would also think about asking her what workshops she might want to run for the public, maybe if she's got some stuff for children. Like, what could we do to, in as best as possible, take her into the fold and fully acknowledge this was a mistake and show that we were taking steps beyond what we have to do to make it right? That's what I would have done. And do you know what? Maybe the translator, Miss Wang, would say, that's not enough for me. I'm too annoyed. And you know what? That's fine. But at least I could say, I'm going to do it I've done the best I can possibly do to make amends for a situation that shouldn't have happened in the first place. But Jennifer, it wouldn't be empty, because what would be on display is all the stuff they are hoarding in their basements that no one gets to have a look at because it's in their basements. That's what would happen. And I would also, I'm going to talk about at the end of today, I would also think about what we can learn from museums that are doing some incredible stuff. For example, I'm going to talk about at the end of this, Young V&A, which just reopened on Saturday, is a fabulous example about how a museum could work. And yes, thank you, Liz, for the super sticker. That's very kind of you. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we can't go elected to the British Museum because I was never a Conservative minister, and nor am I likely to be. Don't think they'll have me. This is the thing. Absolutely, you don't go in there like a colonizer and say, here's the presents that we've got for you. This is what you have to accept. You go, here are my suggestions of how I can make this right for the wrong I've done you. What would you like to see happen? Anyhow, right. Hopping on, we've got some repatriation news. Iraq is now displaying a 2,800-year-old stone tablet that has been returned by Italy. It was handed over to Iraq's president and it has now been put on display in Baghdad. It's unclear how this tablet made its way to Italy, but it was seized by the police in the 1980s. Quote, I would like to thank the Italian officials for their efforts and cooperation in bringing back this piece. Perhaps the tablet was found during archaeological investigations or during work on the Mosul Dam. The Mosul Dam is Iraq's biggest and was built in the 1980s, which is around the time that Italy came into possession of this tablet. It has since been handed over to the National Museum, where it's now on display in the country's capital. It's inscribed with a complete cuneiform text, which is a system of writing on clay in an ancient Babylonian alphabet. We are told that Iraq is often described as the cradle of civilization. The Iraqi president said on Sunday, quote, we want to make the National Iraq Museum one of the best museums in the world, and we will work to do so. We have a reference at the bottom to our buddy, Alvin Bragg. New York prosecutor Alvin Bragg announced the return of two ancient sculptures to Iraq, which were a limestone Mesopotamian elephant and an alabaster Sumerian bull, both of which were stolen during the Gulf War and smuggled into New York in the 1990s, according to the prosecutor's office. Thank you very much, Maria, for the super sticker. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Question from Alicia. Do any of the same people sit on the board of the British Museum and the V&A? I would have to double check that. Not to my knowledge. Certainly not any of the heavy hitters, big names. It's quite a lot of work being on or it should be quite a lot of work being on a museum board. So I don't think so, but I will double check that. Good question. Tea Lady Whimsy, look, when people realise and make me queen of everything, Empress extraordinaire, I will sort stuff out like you wouldn't believe. I will sort it out. Don't know how, but I'll try. I'm a trier. What can I say? This is interesting. We've got some monuments men training happening. The Metropolitan Museum is helping to train a new class of men, people, just men, odd, to protect Ukraine's cultural heritage. So this is coming in autumn. The US Army's announced plans to partner with the Smithsonian Institution to revive its legendary monuments men. Surely they're not still all men. Like the US Army is a mixed sex deal, right? Is this just a male group? Anyway, so this group is working to preserve the art and culture of the Ukraine, and they are taking part in something called Monument Officer Training and Military Programs. This is happening at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Quote, part of the conversation here is how to document evidence of crimes, because, of course, damage to cultural heritage is a war crime. Quote, we've worked hard to develop a methodology for documentation. You aren't just looking for broken objects, but evidence of how they were broken. Interesting. So the idea for the new Monuments Men is that deploying military officers with a background in the art and culture of a nation will help them save works during times of war and to accurately assess and document damage that has already taken place while implementing war zone conservation techniques. So you're looking if it's bombing or if it's actually a kind of active act of aggression, I suppose. Quote, the United States is committed to helping the people of Ukraine protect and preserve their historically important sites. Ukraine's cultural heritage is irreplaceable, and its damage or destruction would be a profound loss to the entire world. We are closely monitoring the situation and will call out Russia's acts of destruction. In the first year of the invasion, there is evidence that some 1,600 instances of damage of Ukrainian cultural heritage sites, including more than 500 religious sites, 2,000 museums, archives, and libraries were damaged, seemingly deliberately, but certainly through bombing. In February 2023, the US Department of State, Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, have pledged to spend $7 million on its Ukraine Cultural Heritage Response Initiative. This is going to aid the Ukraine's efforts to defend the cultural heritage of their country. So we shall see how that goes. And I'm sure that most of the work we're going to hear about is not going to be told to us until a sufficient time has elapsed after the war has ended, and then it's no longer a thing of national security. So, or you have found a photograph that there are women in the photograph. Maybe the headline is making a play on it being Monuments Men. So I think they may. Will these people classify as peacekeepers? Or is this like, because of the work they're doing as documenting, will this classify as, UN or Red Cross or Red Crescent or whatever else? Would this uh yes, but I'm assuming they'll be training them on the ground, so that would mean they're being trained soldiers who are then passing on the training. Need to investigate. Either way, as Tea Lady Whimsy points out, there are 60,000 women in the Ukrainian army, 5,000 of which serve in combat units. So as my husband points out, peacekeepers and military personnel are deployed by the UN. I'm wondering if this works similarly. Are they trained by Americans but deployed in a kind of peacekeeping facility? I will investigate and find out. No, they probably won't. Well, they will. It will potentially, but the thing is, if it's decided that it's going to be seen as an escalation, then there will be. I think, to be perfectly honest, let's remember that there already are British and American boots on the ground in Russia. They're just private forces, almost all of whom have got training from the militaries of their nations. So that's going to be something. My husband's. I've seen this come up. That there is no overlap in the V&A and British Museum boards. My husband's put it in a very poetic way that involves swear words. So there we go. Anywho, this one I've not included pictures because it's human remains. So we don't do that. A high school in Australia has got a mummified, apparently Egyptian head in its collection that no one is sure how it got there or why, and also no one is sure, no one seems to want it, and no one seems to know what to do with it. So this is a school in a place called Grafton. And 10 years ago, it was decided this Egyptian head, this mummified head, should go back to Egypt. So they wrote to Egyptian diplomats in Australia and were told, we're not interested. So Egypt didn't want it back. Then, and this is perhaps because there's no paperwork, no one knows where it comes from. So the state can't just accept it as human remains because they're being told it's Egyptian when there's literally no provenance. That way, that's how they end up in trouble. Then there was the idea that this high school, yes, this high school should perhaps not have human remains in its collection because that's weird. So they said, well, let's give it to the university at Sydney because they already have a significant collection of ancient Egyptian items. Maybe they could find out where they all need to go and give those back. Let's see. They said no, though, because it was expensive. We were told they couldn't afford to rehouse it, study it, do all the things that were needed to figure out what this and where this set of mummified remains came from, because there are simply no records on offer. And the story of how it got to the school is an oral tradition. So fabulous. Continuing on, we are reminded that there is a changing culture at play. You can say that again. Quote, we do believe that displaying human remains does advance scientific understanding and changes our appreciation of how people lived and died thousands of years ago. Look, I'll give you this. I think that the study of human remains in very specialized, controlled, culturally sensitive contexts by trained professionals with input from people who understand the culture as much as possible, I do believe that is vitally important. I don't see how it needs to be displayed for some snotty-nosed primary school children to come with their lunchboxes and bash them against glass and go, ooh, look ahead. I don't see how that's helpful. No thanks. We are told there's been a seismic shift in how ancient objects like mummified remains are understood and presented. Quote, there's a big shift now to questioning what we do and also working very closely with communities, particularly the Egyptian community, who are the source community for these remains. There's still a very strong emphasis on a European interpretation and not an Egyptian interpretation. So then the question then becomes, what's going to happen for the head that sits in Grafton's high school library? People at school are said to have mixed feelings. So it gives tangible evidence to the things we talk about in class. Okay. We don't have the resources to go to the Nicholson collection in Sydney or to the Australian Museum. That sounds like a state budgeting problem. Doesn't mean you get to keep a head, babe. Doesn't mean. I'm really torn. From a human perspective, this should not be here. End of sentence. But it's not. But from a teacher's perspective, I never want to see it leave. Do you know what? Right? I teach. And I teach about things like execution, torture. Never once, not never, not even one singular time have I ever had to do that. And at places like the Tower, we do have the block and axe. We do have a chair on which Joseph Jacobs was executed by firing squad. We have torture implements. I could do it. I could show it, but I don't, because I don't need to. I can just talk about it. I don't need to show it to students. So, quote, finish with this following. We need to go through this whole healing process. These human remains might never find their way back home, but they could still find peace. And this is the thing. I feel that it doesn't represent the traditional understanding of mummification in ancient Egypt, and by doing that, that is an act of desecration. Jessie. It would be like teaching about William Shakespeare while holding a real skull and quoting Hamlet. And here's the other thing that there's another question that gets thrown at me, because somebody did donate their skull to, I want to say, the RSC on the proviso that it would be used in Hamlet. And so that would be human remains on stage. But what's happened there is that we have somebody who, in their will, has asked that to happen. Look, is that what I would want to do? No, it's a bit not for me. However, I would, if they were allowed in this country, I've said that actually what I'd like to do with my body after death is be put in a body farm. But to my knowledge, there's discussions about what could happen in the UK, but to my knowledge, it doesn't actually happen so far. And that's the point, isn't it? Like, if you need a head for your stories in school, there are resin replicas. There's also, even if you can't go to the museum, babe, you've definitely got PowerPoint. Definitely got PowerPoint. Right. Douglas Latchford, that name has come up quite a lot as a smuggler or involved in smuggled goods. He was based in Bangkok. His exploits were suspected for years. But from the 2010s, there were a series of civil and criminal cases that were publicised and explored. He essentially was rewriting the provenance of items. As his article points out, he didn't do it alone. He had the help of a late Colorado art scholar by the name of Emma C. Bunker, who vouched and promoted his stolen relics. A long-time museum trustee and consultant, Bunker helped Latchford use the Denver Art Museum as a laundromat for looted Southeast Asian antiquities. So this is like money laundering, it's antiquities laundering. The Denver Art Museum, when this all started to come out, distanced itself from Bunker, removed her name from a gallery wall, and then announced it was going to return nearly $200,000 worth of donations from the family. The museum then returned 4 Latchford pieces to Cambodia. It's removed all Bunker donations from its Southeast Asian wings, and essentially there was a criminal case against Latchford, but that died when he died in 2020. But they are still going after his assets, including artworks and money. And his daughter inherited, obviously, his estate, and she has been working with authorities in both the United States and Cambodia. She's not, we're told, been opposing the forfeiture, and she, although these things are going back, she's not had to agree to her own guilt in it, because presumably she didn't know anything about it, or if she did, it can't be proven that she did. Quote, the Cambodian campaign for restitution of their heritage is the right resolution to a difficult history. It's appropriate that my father's records have been used by the Cambodian Minister for Culture and Fine Arts and her team to shed light on the activities of the very many collectors, dealers, and institutions which have been involved with the trade. We are told that Bunker's name did not appear on the forfeiture complaint, but the prosecutors are hinting at her role in the scheme. So in 2009, there's Latchford emails an art dealer a photograph of a 6-foot-tall bronze statue, which is clear signs of recent excavation. Confidential for your eyes only, not to be shown to anybody. And he and a scholar he worked with believes the piece comes from the late 7th century. Bunker is referred to, we think, as the scholar. And in 2011, the Bangkok-based art collector published a picture of the Durga in a book called Khmer Bronzes, New Interpretation of the Past. And he co-authored that book with Bunker. This find is referred to as, quote, one of the earliest known Southeastern Asian bronze images cast by the lost wax casting technique, where an iron armature supports the core. Publishing looted antiquities in a book is, we are told, a common laundering practice. Well, it gives them provenance, doesn't it? And cultural heritage, and this is according to cultural heritage expert and investigators in the illicit art trade. These glossy pages give these items a veneer of legitimacy, and it boosts their value in private sales. Cambodian officials have said these books represent the lost culture of their country, which was ravaged by looting during decades of genocide and civil war. Erin Thompson, if you are still on Twitter, Erin Thompson's Twitter is one to follow. Brilliant work on these art crimes, essentially. Erin, quote, "I hope this case encourages other departments to go over this kind of malfeasance." Brilliant word. "It took him decades to build up his collection of illicit antiquities. It could take years, decades even, to unravel it." We have got a California man convicted for smuggling Byzantine, however you pronounce it, era Hercules mosaic from out of Syria. This California man has been convicted for illegally importing an ancient floor mosaic. Wild. Which is thought to have been made in an area that's in modern day Syria, but it's 2,000 years ago, and the value of this is around $500,000. He's been found guilty of one count of entry of false classified goods. He apparently made a false classification about the mosaic's value and quality. So federal prosecutors are investigating this. It's thought that this dates back to the Byzantine era of the Roman Empire. And we see Hercules rescuing Prometheus. Apparently, the smuggler only paid $12,000 for the antiquities. It weighs a whopping 2,000 pounds. It's 15 feet long and 8 feet tall. Like, no one is. This is not a sneaky sneak. This takes a lot of planning. So once again, probably this individual can in some way give information about a wider chain that's going on. This takes work. This takes people collaborating on this. Or it takes loads of money, but still you need people on the ground. The false declarations about the mosaic came just months after the UN Security Council passed a resolution condemning the destruction of cultural heritage in Syria. This is since the Syrian civil war began in 2011, and there's also been destruction by ISIS and also opportunistic looting. The smuggler, I'm not sure if I should say his name, it is listed here. You can read it if you want. I'm just not going to say his name. He is scheduled to be sentenced next month, and he may. Do you know what the sentence feels? Does it feel low? Anyway, he faces a maximum sentence of 2 years in federal prison. Like, that doesn't feel low in terms of a UK sentence, because we don't have the length of sentences. But I feel like in the US, that's a short sentence. I feel like. So the way he when he brings the artwork into the US, he claimed that he was importing ceramic tiles from Turkey with a value of less than £600, and I believe that's a fairly common thing that's done. But this weight, and it's then hidden. This piece is hidden in a shipping container behind a pile of vases, and it's then shipped through to his home after passing through customs. It was seized from his garage in 2016. I'm not sure how they found out who dubbed it in, but I mean, yeah, I don't know about American sentencing, but I've always been sort of told that you do long ones over there. You do big sentences. This is interesting as well. I've got an Aboriginal combat spear that was lost in a fatal fight 160 years ago that has been returned to its family. So this is a combat spear that was stolen in Western Australia 160 years ago. It's a handcrafted wooden spear that was used in the 1860s by a Bellardong man known as Tommy Tracker. Tommy got into an altercation, apparently from stealing sheep from a farmer and early settler, Edmund Ashworth. As a result, Tommy was shot, but he had gone prepared for a fight, we're told. Moments before he died in the confrontation, he threw his spear, but he missed. And so Mr. Ashworth decided to keep it. And so what we're seeing here is a descendant of Ashworth handing the spear back to the community. So, and it's going to be framed and displayed in the York Residency Museum. So if you do get a chance to go and see that, do check it out. Pretty Pic points out you get 5 years having 5 grams. Hang on, isn't marijuana legal in most of the US? I know it's not legal federally, but you get 5 years for marijuana, which is partly legal. Is it maybe because there are certain types of people that are involved in antiquities trafficking, and there are certain types of people that might have 5 grams of pot on them, and that is why. That is why. New news. We're gonna put a pin in the rage factory that is repatriation and decolonization, and we're going to move on to some new news. And I'm going to flag up. I'm going to warn you that there, in the ding dong section, there's going to be some more anger fuel. But human ancestors, it seems, survived the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. Shows the fossil record analysis, and there's a sign of there being a Cretaceous origin for placental mammals. So the origin of us, basically, individuals or species that give birth to live young. This includes humans, dogs, and bats. So if you don't come out of an egg, and you aren't coming into a pouch, presumably. There was an asteroid that hit the Earth. It resulted in the death of all non-avian dinosaurs. So essentially, when you're attacked by a seagull, and if you're in the UK, you will be because they are feral. When a seagull breaks your nose, you got into a fight with a dinosaur and probably lost your chicken nuggets over it. There's been a lot of debate about whether placental mammals were present alongside the dinosaurs before the mass extinction, or whether they popped up afterwards in the space left by the dinosaurs. But it seems now that placental mammals were in fact on Earth. There's this new paper published by the journal Current Biology. A team of paleobiologists have looked at the statistical analysis of the fossil record to determine that placental mammals originated before the mass extinction, meaning they coexisted with dinosaurs for a short time. However, it was only after the asteroid impact that the modern lineages of placental mammals began to evolve, suggesting that they were able to better diversify once the dinosaurs were gone. Well, I think that's going to happen when there are less big things trying to eat you. that's going to be why that happened, isn't it? So that's really cool. Quote, primates, which is the group that includes the human lineage, were shown to have evolved just before KPG, which is the mass extinction, or also known as the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, which means their ancestors were mingling with dinosaurs. After they survived the asteroid impact, placental mammals rapidly diversified, perhaps spurred on by a loss of competition from the dinosaurs. However, they were soon eating each other, it seems. This article showed human remains, which is why I'm not showing it. They have found 9 cut marks on a fossilized shin bone, suggesting that human relatives butchered and possibly ate one another 1.545 million years ago. This fossilized tibia was found in a collection of the National Museum of Kenya's Nairobi National Museum. And this collection is being studied, looking for bite marks from extinct animals. We are told, quote, the cut marks look very similar to what I've seen on animal fossils that were being processed for consumption. It seems most likely the meat from this leg was eaten, and it was eaten for nutrition as opposed to ritual, which is very interesting. I'm not sure how they know that. I'm assuming because of the way in which it's been studied. 3D models based on the molds of the mark have been made. This shape of the cuts has been compared to an existing database of 898 individual tooth, butchery, and trample marks that were created during controlled experiments. This person who was doing this 3D modelling had not been told that they thought the cut marks were made by stone tools. However, this investigation did come to the same conclusion. All the cut marks are oriented in the same direction. It's not clear, though, what species of ancient hominin this shin bone belonged to, because a leg bone doesn't really tell you necessarily that much. However, what we are seeing is that there are sophisticated stone tools being used for it. This comes with the emergence of the Homo genus that includes our own species, Homo sapiens. However, it is possible that other ancient hominins may also have had stone tools as well. We are told that the cuts don't definitively prove the ancient human relative who inflicted the damage also made a meal out of the leg, but of course it's possible. These marks are located. Oh, by the way, actually, hang on, pause. If you're eating, this may be a no eating portion, and there's going to be another one, I think, as well. These are located where a calf muscle would have been attached to the bone, which is, we are told, a good place to cut if the aim was to remove the flesh. I'm going to need to know who wrote this article because they're telling me quite a lot about human butchery. I hope it's not from experience. Quote, the information we have tells us that hominins were likely eating other hominins, maybe, at least 1.45 million years ago. There are numerous other examples of species from the human evolutionary tree consuming each other for nutrition, but this fossil suggests that our species relatives were eating each other to survive further into the past than we recognised. This latest study is, quote, significant because this new find suggests that cannibalism might have been practiced, at least occasionally, a long way back in our ancestral history. This new evidence looks quite convincing and adds the evidence of cannibalism in very early, as well as the considerable evidence from later humans. Scientists have discovered, we are told, the world's oldest burial site in South Africa. Again, no pictures here because human remains. Paleontologists have unearthed the world's oldest burial site in South Africa, which contains remains of Homo naledi, which is a small-brained distant relative of humans previously known to be incapable of complex behavior. Well, I guess if we're writing an article, that's about to be challenged. And wouldn't you know, yes, it is. So this ancient ancestor of ours, ancient relative of ours, is a tree-climbing Stone Age hominid, which was buried about 30 meters or 100 feet underground in the Rising Star cave system. We've talked about that a lot. The quote, these are the most ancient interments yet recorded in the hominin record, earlier than evidence of Homo sapien interments by at least 100,000 years. The burial symbols and interpretation of the findings are now available as preprints for immediate download from somewhere called BioRxiv. This was funded by the National Geographic Society, and this investigation identified depressions deep in the chambers of the Rising Star cave system. They found the body of 8 Homo naledi adults and several children who were estimated to be younger than 13 years of age, who were deposited in fetal positions, which suggests the intentional burial of the dead. Quote, the interments predate the earliest known Homo sapien burials by at least 100,000 years, making the Rising Star burials some of the most ancient in the hominin record, indicating that burials might not have been limited to Homo sapiens or other hominins with larger brain sizes. These recent findings suggest intentional burials, the use of symbols, and meaning-making activities by Homo naledi. It seems an inevitable conclusion that in combination, they indicate that this small-brained species of ancient human relatives was performing complex practices related to death. That would mean not only are humans not unique in the development of symbolic practices, but we may not even have invented such behaviours. So there is more analysis underway currently. I look forward to finding out what they're going to learn from that. And we are learning that there are more discoveries regarding Homo naledi that have been made across this continent, including the single largest fossil hominine discovery in Africa by scientists from diverse parts of the world in 2015. Ooh, make it big. Let's see. We are shattering the myth of men as hunters and women as gatherers. It means that our cousins, in terms of the great species split, may have been the ones who potentially even taught us. Yes, the thing is, I'm assuming that they are saying that because I'm aware about defleshing for mortuary purposes. They seem to be saying that that isn't what's happening. That this is they are saying that it doesn't, because of course that corresponds to ritual purposes, not a drinking game, not a drinking game. But this, they are saying in the finds they located that doesn't correspond with ritual butchery or defleshing, which is what this would be. So they clearly said that something else is happening. above my pay grade. Michael. No. Look, I hope many of you are adults. It tends to be PG-13, but it's late. So if you're a child, it's a school night, go to bed. But also, don't do a drinking game either. Anyway, so we are having the myth of men as hunters and women as gatherers challenged. This in a forest community where people forage to survive, hunters return from a successful outing with fresh kills slung over their shoulders. And if you think you can picture them based on common gender stereotypes, then a new study suggests you should think again. There's been a combing through a database of ethnographic records with looking at 1,400 human societies worldwide going back 100 years. Of the 63 foraging communities examined, 50 had records documenting women hunting. In 87% of those societies, the records described planned, intentional hunting. Women hunted game of all sizes, with large game pursued the most. Quote, males were taught to hunt in a particular way and had a very particular type of tool they would use. They definitely took a role in teaching children, but it was flexible based on personal preference. So women are, we are told, exhibited a greater variety than men in their choice of hunting partners. They would go with their husband, they would go with their friends, they would go with their sisters. Sometimes a grandma will go all by herself if she has a particular way of capturing certain prey. Purposeful selection of weapons and strategy told the researchers that women were planning their hunting trips rather than hunting opportunistically while performing other daily tasks. Quote, this study tells us more fine-grained detail of what women are actually doing when they hunt. Women hunting groups, they hunt with dogs. They use different technologies than men. Overall, they serve in a diversity of important roles that makes hunting successful. However, we are being cautioned against applying the findings too broadly to all foraging communities. We are told there were 391 forager societies in the database, of which about 16% met the assigned criteria of containing records that described hunting practices. Though the scientist analysis shows strong evidence of women hunters within this subset of forager populations, it's difficult to say how widespread the behaviour is across all foraging societies. Nevertheless, this tells us some interesting things about how flexible gender roles can be. In fact, this flexibility is an essential part of human survival, particularly in small communities where contributions of every individual are important to the group. Human survivorship cannot last with rigid gender roles. In rapidly changing environments, especially in groups of humans that don't have large populations, Everybody has to be willing to lend a hand, and rigid taboos prevent that. So, yeah, if there was some kind of conflict in which, or some kind of fight between lots of young men, and I don't know, a large proportion of that generation was either wounded or maybe killed, unable to hunt, trust and believe, that's when you're going to be reliant on a diverse group of people to hunt. I wonder also if there's a question to be asked about how much we are still applying that sort of first approach to ethnography, which arguably starts back in the 1600s, where although people doing it were coming at it claiming that they had no bias, that they had trained the bias out themselves, and we all know that that's not true. I do wonder if, in terms of reading the split between labour and work and this presentation of boy jobs and girl jobs, like, is that even something that these communities would even consider? Do they differentiate themselves based upon sex, gender, age, marital status? Maybe, but maybe not. Is that perhaps because the people observing them and noting them like to separate people out in those ways and codify them and value assess them and devalue others and value others higher simply because of an accident of birth? I don't know. Yes, the larger and more complex society is, the more I can get away with the more I can get away with rigid taboos. Small groups have to be flexible. Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Right, next. AI. I want to do a video on. I'm trying to figure out a way to do a video on AI something. All the anthropologists kicked in. So my husband says an ethnographic study of the, quote, matriarchal Sudanese society from 1900, where women did everything, apparently forgot to research the terrible genocides that had wiped out the fighting age males. So that's the thing, is that they if you walk in and go, the ladies are doing everything, oh my goodness, it's matriarchal, but you don't look at the wider context, namely that all of the young men have been brutally murdered in a genocide, then you can perhaps misread what's going on. Anyway, I have some plans. Watch this space. I'm going to try and do something AI based, maybe chat GPT based, in a history context, and we'll play and see what happens. I want to do a little bit of experimenting with videos on this channel, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. And if you have ideas for more like out of the box types of videos, do let me know, because I'm looking to diversify and see what works. 5,000-year-old cuneiform tablets have been translated by AI. Tea Lady Whimsy, I don't think they were glossing over it. I think my husband will have to chime in. Did they not know about the genocide, or were they like, it doesn't matter? Let me know on a text. I'll fill you in when he gets back to me. So this is using neutral machine learning translation. Don't know what that means. Sounds interesting. This is a paper published from the Oxford University Press. They have applied this AI program to translate these texts with apparently a high level of accuracy. This language is preserved on clay tablets dating back to 2500 BCE, written in cuneiform, we talked about earlier. According to researchers, quote, hundreds of thousands of clay tablets inscribed in the cuneiform script document the political, social, economic, and scientific history of ancient Mesopotamia. Yet most of these documents remain untranslated and inaccessible due to their sheer number and limited quantity of experts able to read them. However, AI program is able to have a high level of accuracy when translating these texts. So this presumably means that it can translate loads of these texts. They seem to be fine. They found the code breaker. The goal of the neural machine translation. So is this like neural machine translation? Neural is brain. So thinking, learning, machine translation. Hang on, we've got it's very poor research. They thought they'd found evidence of matriarchy and they were going to be famous. What a muppet that bloke was. He's asked me, do I want him to explain the machine learning? Yeah, I do. Let me know. Thank you. At some point, I'm just going to get him up here. At some point, we're just going to get him up here to co-host with me, aren't we? I have to get some space. Oh, Pretty Pic. Apparently, the British Museum just invested in AI. Well, I suppose it means they don't have to pay translators. Shade. So this neural machine translation, NMT, is the goal is to translate English from Akkadian, and it's to be part of a human-machine collaboration, creating a pipeline that assists the scholar or student of the ancient language. This NMT model is available at an online notebook. The source code has currently been made available on GitHub at Academia, which you can go to this article and click on that link. These researchers are currently developing an online application called the Babylonian Engine, which sounds like something you would use to travel through space and time. Are we having a... Let's see. Good. I mean, they probably will be, but I like the joke. Stonehenge. A Stonehenge-like 4,000-year-old sanctuary has been discovered in the Netherlands, we are told. This is made up of ditches and burial mounds in the central Netherlands, and it's thought that this once served a purpose similar to Stonehenge. Offerings have been discovered, including animal skeletons, human skulls, value items like bronze spearheads, and these have been found at the spots where the sun shone through the openings. Quote, the largest mound served as a sun calendar, similar to the famous stones at Stonehenge in England. This sanctuary must have been a highly significant place where people kept track of special days of the year, performed rituals, and buried their dead. Rows of poles stood along pathways used for processions. This site was excavated in 2017, and when this was happening, the archaeologists involved found several graves. One woman who was buried there had a glass bead from Mesopotamia, which is in modern-day Iraq. This is the oldest bead ever to be found in the Netherlands. I think I covered this in a news story in previous videos many moons ago. And 6 years have gone by where more research and more than 1 million excavated objects, which date from the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Roman Empire, and Middle Ages, which points to this site being in use for a long old time. After the excavation was finished, the site was covered again to allow for construction work. Some of the discoveries will be showcased in a local museum in Tiel, and also in the Dutch National Museum of Antiquities. So, if you get a chance to check it out, do let us know what you think of that display. This is pretty cool. Look at these. So many things. A Bronze Age metal hoard has been found in the Swiss Alps at a Roman battle site. This is more than 80 bronze artifacts that date from 1200 BCE to 1000 BCE, which is the late Bronze Age. This hoard is discovered in a field south of an ancient settlement on a trans-alpine trade route. It is being described as the largest and most important Bronze Age hoard ever discovered in this particular location. These items, we are told, have been intentionally damaged so they would be unusable. They've been placed in a wooden box, wrapped in leather, and then buried in the valley. Most of these buried objects are metal objects, possibly linked to metal production in the Alps. There were several pieces of raw copper, sickles, axes, part of a saw, and jewellery pieces. They were damaged deliberately and, quote, killed before being buried as an offering, which I think is really interesting. There's a comprehensive scientific investigation that's about to follow having this find being made, and it will no doubt provide far-reaching insight into late Bronze Age cultural, economic, and landscape history. And it will no doubt provide more insight into the culture and economy of the late Bronze Age. I look forward to seeing what they find out as their studies continue. Staying in the Bronze Age, we have got a complete Bronze Age town with elite tombs discovered that was found in northern China. We can see in this image part of a bronze part from a horse chariot, which suggests that the entire chariot and perhaps the horses that drew it were also entombed. The mysterious origins of ancient bronzeware found in a part of northern China may have been uncovered due to the discovery of a complete Bronze Age town in the area. There have been hundreds of artifacts found: bronze drinking vessels, painted pottery, ornaments inlaid with turquoise and carved pieces of jade. These relics date from more than 3,000 years ago. So in terms of that modelling, this is translation done using statistical modelling. The introduction of the neural network element means the model is also continuing to learn from the object it is studying. Thank you very much, darling. That's made it clearer. So essentially you're creating, it's referring to it being created almost like a brain. So it's able to learn. Fabulous. The archaeologists described the find at a news conference in Beijing. The experts said that local people had been unearthing ancient artifacts since the 1940s, but no one knew where they were coming from until this Bronze Age site was found. All of the basic elements of a central settlement have been discovered at the site: tombs, large-scale structures, but now we have found the complete face of a settlement. Archaeologists had already found 9 aristocratic tombs at Zigao, of which 7 are rectangular tombs with passages, suggesting that they belonged to local leaders. Tomb passages symbolize a high social status. In this hierarchy, those without high status could not have a tomb passage. Archaeologists have now unearthed more than 200 items from tombs there, such as lacquerware, that are similar to those found at other Shang Dynasty sites. Experts at the news conference said that the ruins at Zigao may once have been the capital of a separate state that had been conquered by the Shang, who were based in the city of Yingsu in Henan, and thereafter paid tribute to them. More Bronze Age. Completely unique 2,700-year-old rock carvings have been discovered in Sweden. We are seeing sailing ships, grazing animals, and people doing hunting, gathering, and dancing, all carved into walls, then slowly obscured by layers of moss until they were lost by time. At least they were until about a month ago, when they were recovered. These carvings, or petroglyphs, measure around 3 meters high. Big boys. And decorate a steep rock face that once formed the edge of an island before sea levels dropped. It's been speculated that these works were made by artists on boats, that they would have constructed some sort of scaffolding over the ice, because the researchers themselves had to use scaffolding to look at the artworks. These are deep carvings made by striking stones against the granite rock to reveal a brilliant white underlayer that would be visible for several miles. What makes the petroglyphs completely unique is that they are located 3 meters above today's ground surface. So the things themselves aren't 3 meters tall, I don't think. I think they were 3 meters high, not the drawings are 3 meters high, although they might be. It's quite hard to see for scale. They're an even line that follows the height of the sea surface from approximately 700 to 800 BCE, which also connects to the time in which these are thought to have been produced. Next up, we've got some sciencey stuff from ancient Egypt. Walls along the River Nile reveal an ancient form of hydraulic engineering. There's been a team of researchers who have discovered a vast network of stone walls along the River Nile in Egypt and Sudan, and they are referring to them as river groins that are believed to reveal an exceptionally long-lived form of hydraulic engineering. These walls trap fertile silts during the Nile's annual inundation, and so crops can then be grown on the reclaimed land without artificial irrigation. Radiometric dating suggests that this form of landscape engineering was first undertaken by the indigenous Nubian communities, and as well as inhabitants of towns that were later established by the Egyptian state. The researchers also identified much larger stone walls within the Nile, some up to 5 meters thick and 200 meters long, barrages that would have directed river flow and aided boat navigation through the treacherous Nile rapids. We are told, quote, this study shows how interdisciplinary research can provide insights into enduring traditions, technologies, and agricultural practices within Nubia, balancing the inherently biased information in the ancient Egyptian textual record. An ancient Greek altar has been found in Sicily. This is a altar that's thought to be for family worship, dating back more than 2,000 years, and it was found in Sicily. That it's thought this altar was probably in use at the height of the Hellenic cultural influence, just before the rise of the Roman Empire in the 1st century before Christ, or as we would call it now, BCE. It's been buried for centuries by a few centimeters of earth and vegetation. It's been found in the area of the southern Acropolis at the Segesta site, which is on the western part of the island. We are told, quote, excavations continue to bring to light pieces that add new perspectives and interpretations to a site where multiple civilizations are stratified. In addition to the altar, archaeologists also dug out a similar shaped relic that they think might have been a support for a sculpture. Both finds, we're told, are perfectly preserved, and I'm assuming more stuff might be found soon. Next up, we have perhaps a story that was shared with me the most. Do we have a Pompeii pizza on display, painted on a wall at the Pompeii Archaeological Park? Maybe. This is not a fresco. It's a modern day pizza, but without cheese and tomatoes. This is a 2,000-year-old painting. When it's thought that it could be a distant ancestor of the modern dish. The Pompeii is only 14 miles from Naples, which the Reuters news agency described as, quote, the modern day home of the Italian pizza, which is a UNESCO protected food. Pompeii's park director, Gabriel Zutragel, said this newly uncovered fresco shows the contrast between a frugal, simple meal, which refers to a sphere between the bucolic and the sacred, and the luxury of silver trays and the refinement of artistic and literary representations. The new excavations revealed an atrium of a house that included an annex with a bakery, partially explored in the late 19th century. And this is where they found we talked about this last time, the skeletons of 3 victims from a collapse of a building. So not actually necessarily from the explosion of the volcano of Vesuvius, the eruption of Vesuvius. I believe these individuals were crushed. So this has been found in past weeks. However, before we get too excited about pizza, NPR want to take all the fun out of it. No, it's not a pizza. It's not the iconic dish. And they'll tell you for why. It looks like a pizza, but it's not, because it's missing tomato and mozzarella because they weren't available 2,000 years ago. Tomatoes only came to Europe from the Americas a few centuries ago, and some histories have it that the discovery of mozzarella led directly to the invention of pizza in nearby Naples in the 1700s. Instead, it's thought that what we have here is focaccia covered with fruit, including pomegranate and possibly dates, finished with spices or a type of pesto. Is that a bruschetta? Is that a bruschetta? In the fresco, it's served on a silver plate and a wine chalice stands next to it. It's a contrast with the frugal meal, the contrast of the frugal meal served in a luxurious setting, donated by the silver tray, is not unlike modern day pizza. Born as a poor man's dish in southern Italy, it's won over the world, and it's even still served in starred restaurants. Is this? So yes, flatbread. But a flatbread doesn't have to. A flatbread with toppings. A flatbread with toppings, to me, that's a bruschetta. Look, in Pizza Express, that'd be a bruschetta. Hang on. I'm not saying that out loud, Jamie. Behave yourself. I'm not saying the way you pronounce focaccia. Behave yourself. Black Prince. It still looks tasty, whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I probably nom nom nom. Looks quite delicious. Yes, once again though, the people from Pompeii might have been very careful not to call it pizza. The journalists were like, it's a pizza. It's round. It's got toppings. Pizza. They've magic-eyed it. Oh, now we're getting into it. Bruschetta requires tomatoes. I mean, I see where you're coming from there. Oh, we've got focaccia with toppings. Yes. I mean, yes. But this aren't those toppings baked in? This looks like the toppings have been used to decorate the flatbread. He's brought me more tea. Thanks, babe. Swap you out the cup. Focaccia with dates baked in. Sounds delicious. Thank you very much. Kimberly asked how old my child is. He will be 3 in September. He's very cool. I wonder if they would call it pizza if it wasn't in Italy. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. If for it to be pizza, it has to come from the Piazza region of Naples. Otherwise, it's just sparkling flatbread. Dessert pizza. I mean, let's be clear. There are plenty of pizza chains that do a cookie dough, chocolate chip hot cookie dough with ice cream in a pizza dish. It's pizza dessert. It's pizza dessert. He is the best, Hannah. I think I'll keep him in a cupboard. Shh, don't tell anyone. We are sticking with Rome. An archaeological find, a poem by Virgil, appears on the remnants of a Roman oil amphora. This find is 6 centimeters wide, 8 centimeters long, and it has rendered the archaeological community absolutely aghast, amazed, befuddled, and overjoyed. The research team, we are told, was originally not surprised to receive this fragment. However, they had a little looky look, and what shocked them is that they were able to infer the text. They overlaid the text, and they found that it corresponds to the 7th and 8th verses of the book of the Georgics, a poem by Virgil dedicated to agriculture and life in the countryside, written in 29 BCE. Virgil was the most popular poet of his time and still is many centuries later. So it's common to find verses from Virgil on the remains of ceramic construction materials, with many authors deducing these tablets had educational functions. But why, oh why, is it on a amphora? And why the Georgics, why not the Aeneid? Well, posing these questions, the researchers in the project realised that the tiny fragment of pottery could be a unique piece and one of extraordinary value, since Virgil's verses had never been documented on an amphora destined for the oil trade. The author's main thesis in the work is that these verses were written on the underside of the amphora without anyone expected to notice them, only as a sign of the knowledge and culture of the person who wrote them, revealing a certain level of literacy in the fertile plain of the Guadalquivir area. In terms of who might have written it, there are several possibilities that have been posed by the authors of this study, including it was written by a specialised worker of the establishment with a certain degree of literacy. Perhaps someone from the nearby villages wrote it, who was related to an aristocratic family who owned the factory. They also think it's possible that a child worker wrote it, as the regular use of young workers at this type of establishment had been previously documented. Either way, the verses on this amphora make it a unique piece, and it poses many questions that are in need of answers. Hopping to the Mayan era, archaeologists in Mexico have discovered the remains of an ancient Mayan city deep in the jungle of the Yucatan Peninsula. Several pyramid-like structures have been found, measuring more than 15 meters in height. They've also found pottery at the site, which seems to indicate that the site was inhabited between 600 and 800 BCE. No, CE. 600 and 800 CE, a period that's known in Mayan times as the Late Classic. So we are seeing a really cool image that's been found. We are told the Maya are considered to be one of the great civilizations in the Western Hemisphere. These later remains are found in an ecological reserve in the state of Campeche, which is an area with dense vegetation, so it's been little explored. They use, though, airborne laser scanning, so they can get through the tree cover. We're talking a lot about these new stuff. Yes, a good old bit of lidar. We've talked about lidar a lot. The team leader Ivan Sprajic, who said that they've been most surprised by the discovery of an elevated terrain surrounded by wetlands. It's thought this site served as an important regional centre. It's thought that this site probably underwent considerable changes between 800 and 1000 CE before it fell victim to the collapse of the lowland Maya civilization in the 10th century. Yeah, I think there's going to be these new technologies that we're seeing across the board. We're going to find lots more things out, and it's going to be much less invasive to do so, which is just fabulous. We have got, again, no pictures because human remains, Anglo-Saxon ivory rings that have been discovered in elite burials, and it's been found that these rings were made from ivory from African elephants coming from 4,000 miles away. Hundreds of elite Anglo-Saxon women were buried with mysterious ivory rings. This baffled archaeologists. But now there have been techniques that have explored this, and it thought that the ivory came from African elephants. This indicates a network of trading, bringing objects from Eastern Africa across post-Roman Europe to England. And we know that trade networks are more expansive than is usually considered. This seems to be proving the point. The team analysed the ivory's collagen protein and found that it was made from the tusk of an African elephant. Radiocarbon analysis revealed that this elephant lived around the 5th century CE. These bag rings have been found and have puzzled archaeologists for more than 200 years. They often find the bags contained objects, and they tend to be quite random: broken copper, Roman coins, things like that. Their discovery only in wealthy graves may indicate they've been associated with women who had a special place in society. They also measured, in terms of the research they've done, they measured the ratio of strontium isotopes, and this gave results that this elephant grew up in an area with geographically young volcanic roots, probably the Rift Valley region of East Africa. So we aren't talking about a gift of elephants from somewhere to England. They aren't bringing elephants in. That does happen in the medieval period because there is an elephant kept at the tower. This is a trade in ivory from an elephant that appears to have grown up in Africa. It's thought as well that the rings were crafted in Africa and traded until they reached England. It's thought that these rings were popular among Anglo-Saxons for about 100 years. Quote, we are told this study may add to the growing body of evidence suggesting that trade networks of the 5th to 7th centuries were far more extensive and complex than often previously supposed. But we are being cautioned that other bag rings may have come from elsewhere. Quote, my own work has recorded over 700 of these rings in cemeteries in early medieval England. More contextual and scientific work needs to be done. Just because you found some rings that are African elephant ivory tusk material doesn't mean every ivory looking ring comes from that. They had once suspected that they were walrus ivory rings, and perhaps it'll be interesting to see if there is some kind of spectrum in the rings. This is interesting. So the face of a teenage girl from 1300 years ago has been revealed. There's been a facial reconstruction of a 16-year-old woman who was buried in the UK in the 7th century. She was buried with a gold and garnet cross. It was her image was reconstructed following an analysis of her skull, and it suggested that actually she moved to England from Central Europe as a young girl, which likely led to a change in her diet. This is based on the analysis of her remains. When she was found with a rare gold and garnet cross. This is going to be unveiled in a major new exhibition at Cambridge's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology that's already open, and it's going to be running. Oh, no, sorry. This 21st of June or next 21st of June? Yes, so it's already open, 21st of June, and it's running to the 14th of April, 2024. We are told she was found lying on a carved wooden bed wearing the cross. She had gold pins and fine clothing. We don't know we're told her precise eye and hair color that can't be found without a DNA analysis, but they think that her image here is a strong indication of her appearance shortly before she died. These remains were discovered in near to Cambridge. Once the girl arrived in England, we see that there's the protein in her diet decreases. Her diet changes once she arrives in England, suggesting that her lifestyle may have changed quite significantly. She's young when she moves. She's likely from southern Germany, close to the Alps, and she moves to a very flat part of England. It suggested that she was probably quite unwell, and she travelled a long way to somewhere quite completely unfamiliar. Even the food was different, and it must have been scary. The item she's found with is one of only 5 of its kind ever found. Research has suggested that she is one of England's earliest converts to Christianity, a member of the aristocracy, and possibly even royalty. Dr. Leggett of this find says, quote, "She must have known that she was important, and she had to carry all of that on her shoulders." So what brought her over here? Who is she? Maybe we will find out more as more research is done on the site of her burial and the things around it. Archaeologists have found a gaming piece with runic inscriptions. This has been found in Trondheim, Norway. The discovery was made in the city's medieval centre, where an old trading post used to be. The team were excavating to prepare the site for repairs on a sewer pipe. And when doing so, they found this. The gaming piece is made of soapstone, and high resolution of the gaming pieces was sent to a runologist who confirmed that the uneven geometric pattern was actually runes. They follow the shape of the gaming piece, and it's been translated to say Sigfir. The Sig is possibly a hypocorism for a common Norse name such as Sigurd, Sigborn, Sigfrid, or Sigrid. Or when the name ends in an R, it's assumed to refer to a male name. The word Sifir is a Haiti, a synonym used in Old Norse poetry in place of the normal word for something. So we have a quotation. "I only know of one other playing piece with runes in the country. It was found in Bergen. The interesting thing is that it's also uncertain whether the inscription Viking, which was a common name in the Middle Ages, referred to the person who owned the object, the person who made the inscription, or whether it was the nickname of the playing piece." Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I'm quite careful about referring to it as being that. As you notice, what I've labelled this slide as, I label it as early medieval because, for a start, the kind of in earlier discussions, the notion of Anglo-Saxon, that refers to a particular community in a particular location. The notion of there being an Anglo-Saxon England or an Anglo-Saxon Britain, to my understanding, it's not my period of study, but to my understanding, is woefully misunderstands the diversity and sectioning up of this island and islands indeed. So for me, early medieval works better because I don't really know, particularly from articles, I don't really know if they actually mean an Anglo-Saxon or if they're just using that as a shorthand for a time period. And to me, it's not necessarily that effective. For me, the more effective way of referring to it is either early medieval, or if we're talking about Britain, let's talk about pre-Norman. Yes, so if they found Viking on a piece, the question is this a reference to someone who was like an individual who was a Viking, or is the game piece itself called a Viking? In which case, what's the game? Doodles made by Henry VIII have been found in a prayer book. These are annotations in a copy of Psalms and Prayers. This is something that was translated by his final wife and queen, Catherine Parr. Henry VIII, we know, used throughout his life particular types of marking. I suppose in many ways it'd be like people dog-earing pages, people highlighting text. The way Henry does it is he draws what's called a manicule, which is like a finger doing this. So you see the index finger pointing, and you have like the nubbies of the other fingers. So it's like this is important. The other thing he used is trefoils, which he shows as 3 dots with a squiggle. The comparison between the known markings made by Henry, and he uses these markings through his great matter to pinpoint things that he thinks is useful. For quotations in religious text. Jennifer, interesting point, because I was talking to somebody who was a Bible history of the Bible expert, and for a time period, and I'm going to have to double check this, so don't quote me on it for what period we're talking about, but there was a practice of people reordering their Bibles or their prayer books to work more in ways that worked more for them. So they'd essentially cut bits out and they'd scrapbook them. So different relationship potentially. Well, we know that indeed by daily proof you shall me find the Anne Boleyn, the Anne Boleyn quotation, and also my time, le temps viendra, of course. So what the interesting thing is that the things that he is highlighting, we know when this book is published, so we know that this is a text from later in his life, and we also can therefore see in the last years of his life what might have been preoccupying him. So one passage in the prayer book says that God's punishment has left the narrator feeble. Of course, we know that Henry is suffering from bad health. So is he highlighting this because he's worried that God is punishing him with physical illness? At this time, he's at war with France. So is he he's giving out versions of this text potentially with relevant passages highlighted? Is this intended to use a biblical message to support his conflict? In his own copy, the marginalia included would have been read by chosen courtiers. So these books are things that are present in private apartments. They are there for your closest intimates to read. So it becomes in itself a kind of political document. And it's showing his courtiers, those closest to him, what his personal thoughts are, or at least what he wants them to see are his personal thoughts. The scholar who found these has written, quote, this is Micheline White has said, quote, I think he's trying to show that he's exemplary, particularly in reference to marginalia next passages where the narrator is asking God to bring him back to the right path. He's obviously really worried. Towards the end of his reign, he definitely had a lot to be worried about. And this was originally published, this article was published in Renaissance Quarterly. So I think we often talk about Henry's motivations, and we talk about things such as his desire for a son. We talk about his lust for Anne Boleyn, but I think there's an element that we do have to consider, is that in many cases, perhaps, and it's often said that we don't really have a full grasp of faith understanding. There's 2 things you can't really grasp when it comes to our ancestors, particularly from the distant past, and that is how they viewed and did sex, but also how they viewed and did religion, and how truly and deeply they felt it. And all too often, I think people are willing to discredit Henry's behavior as being faith motivated because it's self-serving. and it's so very convenient. But when you believe that you have been placed in your position by God, is it not impossible to think that that God would not give you what you need and want? And so if God won't give you what you need and want, then surely you must change things to get yourself back right with God. But of course, God is going to guide you personally as to what that right thing is, because you're the king and you have a personal, special relationship with God. Because of course you do. There, I knew this came from somewhere. People creating their own version of the Bible by cutting and pasting. I knew this was a thing. I remembered it. It went into my brain hole, and I was like, that's a thing. Thank you very much, Michael. So no doubt more to find out about this. I will update you as and when I know more. We've got an auction happening. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Sotheby's is auctioning this fabulous painting of Catherine Parr. It was in a private collection. We obviously don't know where it's going. It's attributed to Master John. It was the property of the Right Honourable Earl of Jersey. We don't know where it's going. The estimate is between 600,000 and 800,000 British pounds. What I will say is, and I'm going to talk about it later, is the National Portrait Gallery has reopened. So maybe they're looking for an acquisition. However, that being said, they have just spent a fortune on a refurb. Maybe they don't have the money. I really do hope it's going to go into a museum collection and not back into private hands. We will see. We do have one painting that has been saved from leaving the UK. This is a highly unusual, we're told, lost 17th century portrait showing black and white women being presented as equals. I've seen this, so I don't know how it was lost, because I've seen this portrait before. It's, of course, an image of outstanding significance particularly in terms of the study of the ideas of race and gender in 17th century Britain. We see two women, one white, one black, depicted as companions. Their dress is similar, their hair and jewellery is similar. They have alternate little patches on their face. So the white lady has black stars and moons all over her, and the black lady has white beauty patches on her face. These patches or spots would have been made of silk or velvet. Part of the purpose of them was to hide imperfections in the skin or potentially signs of disease. It was auctioned in 2021, but a stop to it being allowed to leave the country was made, and it was noted that its departure from the UK would be a misfortune. The committee in charge of investigating it stated, quote, "The depiction of a black female sitter in the 1650s painting was highly unusual, inviting important debate about race and gender during the period." Continuing, it says, "It visualizes in a way that no other painting of the period does the early modern debates concerning the morality of cosmetics use, discourses on ideal beauty and blackness, issues concerning gender hierarchy and female agency, as well as attitudes towards race and ethnicity, especially so in an age that witnessed increasing global contact through trade and colonial expansion." It had been intended that this painting would be taken overseas unless a UK buyer could be found. It's now been acquired by Compton Verney for more than £300,000, with much of that coming from the National Heritage Memorial Fund and some coming from the Arts Council of England and V&A Purchase Grant Fund. Compton Verney covered the rest through an acquisition fund established by the sale of a painting several years ago. This painting is going to undergo conservation and study at the Yale Centre for British Art at Yale University before it goes on display next year. Compton Verney is based in a Grade 1 listed Georgian manor with 120 acres of parkland designed by Lancelot Capability Brown. The CEO said the painting fits so interestingly with our collections. We've got portraits and folk art where we're thinking about different ways of showing people. For us, it opens up a conversation about who's in portraits and why certain people aren't in portraits. We don't know who these women were. The fact that it's two women, one black, one white, is particularly interesting for us now. And these were stories that were deliberately not told. So yeah, I'm excited to see this. I will, when this portrait comes back from Yale, this joint portrait comes back from Yale and goes on display, I'm going to keep my eyes open because I want to go and have a look. The Louvre has used French patrimony laws to snag a $2.8 million terracotta sculpture after it sold at auction. This is a legal statute has allowed the Louvre to halt the sale of a 17th century terracotta funerary monument by the French artist François Angier. Instead, this sculpture has now been scooped up by the Louvre themselves. This is the French law of preemption, known as the droit de préemption, which I'm assuming is the right of preemption. This allows government-run entities to buy goods of cultural significance before they are sold to the general public. I'm seeing this as being something equivalent to our treasure laws, our kind of preservation of important finds. So, because public bodies like the Louvre are unable to take part in auctions, the museum preempts the sale by purchasing the item out from under the high bidder for whatever price the work achieved. So the final price sculpture landed in at 2.85 million plus fees. This is a record for this kind of work. And it carried an estimate between 2.19 and $3.29 million. Quote, in practice, the preemption right is exercised by an administrative agent who makes an announcement after the auctioneer's hammer falls for the artwork that the state wishes to preempt. Per the Ozonat catalogue entry for the sculpture, the artist was, quote, one of the most famous sculptors who worked under the regency of Anne of Austria at the beginning of the reign of Louis XIV. He is considered to be the best sculptor of funerary monuments in Paris during the years 1640 to 1660. A $108 million lady, we're told. This is the last ever portrait painted by Gustav Klimt, called Lady with a Fan, and it's set to be auctioned at Sotheby's in London. Well, it's not set to be, it has been. So this piece sold for 85.3 million pounds, or $108.4 million. This apparently is a new record price for any work of art sold in an auction in Europe. This is according to the London-based auction house Sotheby's. That is like, when somebody talks about there being 4 million people somewhere or something, and it's just really hard to kind of get a concept of what that number of people looks like. That's how I feel about this level of money. It's a lot. The guide price was £65 million, which is still steep, but it's not £85.3 million. And it sold after a tenth, I bet it was 10-minute bidding war. Whew. They ended up eking out the final bids in £500,000 increments. That is people have a lot of money, maybe too much money. Like if an individual can sit in an auction and just be like, in a 10-minute period, get themselves to a position where they are spending $108 million in, like, Their thought process in 10 minutes is they can do that. Babe, there's people who need health care. Like, there's kids going hungry. Like, what is this? This is a nation's GDP. What is this? Calm down. Apparently the fall of the hammer at £74 million broke the tension and triggered a collective exhalation in the room and a round of applause. Why are you clapping this? Why are you clapping this? Okay. The painting sold to a Hong Kong-based art advisory firm bidding on behalf of a collector based there. Before this, the portrait was offered for sale nearly 30 years ago. It was acquired by the family of the previous owner, for $11.6 million, according to the auction house. I don't. The population of LA is 13 million. So you give $100 to every person in LA and still have money left over. Jeez. I'm not going to say what I want to say because it might be incitement. I'm just gonna. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, I get. Do you know what I was going to say? I get people work for their money, but do you know what? That amount of money, my opinion, allegedly, is that you've probably done more harm than good. You've probably stepped on enough necks that you've done more harm than good. And also, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to move on. In a world where money is resource, in a world where, for better or worse, money is what provides you with the security of housing, food, and in America, medical treatment, hoarding up this level of wealth kills people. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that, and I'm going to walk away from that. The Archivist of the United States. What a cool job. The Archivist of the United States. Oh, can I one? Buying art isn't a tax write-off, is it? No. No? Right? Thank you, Melissa. And yeah, every now and again, it's very. I say this all the time. I know that it's impossible to approach history without your politics getting in the way, but on this channel, I do try to keep my politics, my faith, everything out of the present as best I can, out of my presentation of history. And I think at some point I must be successful because I've had people in my comments talking about my assumed faith and my assumed politics, and 9 times out of 10 they are incorrect. So I must do a fairly good job. Although the more I do of this, I think it's becoming evidently more and more clear where my politics sit. I can't not at this point. We're live. I can't. It's all I can do not to say swears because that's who I am as a person. I have a filthy mouth. If anybody. Oh, hang on. Oh boy. Yes, my husband pointed out there's still homelessness in London. and elsewhere. And also, apparently, there are tax incentives if you allow the art to be accessible publicly. Nope. 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 So bad. Oh, that's in the UK. Anywho. So, Archivist of the United States, which sounds like a really cool job. Although potentially, I hope she's not in Florida. Dr. Colleen Shogun announced earlier today that the National Archives planned to place the Emancipation Proclamation, which is a fabulous tongue twister. Emancipation Proclamation. It's one of those phrases that's chewy, if you know what I mean. I like a chewy word. Melissa is swearing for me here on Cape Cod. Just join me on Wednesday because I am like as my grandmother said, I've got a mouth like a navvy. And some of my friends refer to me as the scaffolder. not even sorry. Thank you, Melissa. When President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, love it, on January the 1st, 1863, he wrote that, quote, all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free. Shogun quoted. Although the full privileges of freedom were not immediately bestowed upon all Americans with Lincoln's order, I am proud that the National Archives will enshrine this seminal document for public display adjacent to our nation's founding documents. Together, they tell a more comprehensive story of the history of all Americans and document progress in our nation's continuous growth towards a more perfect union. Shogun made this announcement this morning ahead of the National Archives' annual temporary display of the Emancipation Proclamation as part of its Juneteenth celebrations. From June 17th to 19th, 2023, the archives will display the original Emancipation Proclamation and General Order Number 3. So, unless it's been missed, I missed this one, sorry. There was time ticket entry. If you did see it, let us know what you thought. There was also a special Juneteenth Family Day on June 17th. So obviously, unfortunately, that's been missed for this year. But I'm assuming, put it in your diary, check out what the National Archives are doing, because they'll be doing something next year. So put June 17th, National Archives in the diary for next year. This is the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and it was open. They opened for an extended period on Juneteenth weekend. So check it out for next year. I'm sorry we missed it this year. Oh, I did not know this. I need to look into this more. I apologize for not knowing that Juneteenth is the date when the slaves in the far south of Texas were told they were free. They'd actually been free for 2 years. I did not know that. Blimey. Thank you for that, Jessie. We're now going to move on to the ding dong section. Now, do you know what? They put this in the title. A 42,000-year-old anatomically accurate penis pendant is the world's earliest known depiction of human genitalia. And I'm just going to say, just looking at that picture, that person needs to see a doctor. Oh, I forgot. We're on the ding dong. Thank you, Melissa. Ding dong bell. My little pissing boy. Ding dong. I don't know about you, but Belle, I don't know about you, but if that was presented to me, I would leave the room and maybe the country if that was what the penis looked like that came towards me. It was carved out of a chunk of graphite. It was found in northern Mongolia. It's 1.7 inches long, and it's been part of the collection of the Mongolian Academy of Sciences ever since it was found. It was radiocarbon dated. The organic material around it was radiocarbon dated, and it's been determined that this is a Paleolithic artifact made approximately 42,000 years ago. I didn't know. I can remember that song that Justin Timberlake and somebody else did for Saturday Night Live about something being in a box. Girl, it's like this is like a sad present. This is not a happy present. This is a, oh dear, sir, do you need help? As Tony said, I'd be calling an ambulance, both for this individual, but also for the trauma of myself. I think I would probably need to be medicated. So, well, they're pressing this notion of being anatomically accurate. What? It's thought that the pieces maker used stone tools to carve the pendant. It includes a groove to depict the urethra, which is the pee-pee hole, and there's also another groove that is likely used to tie the piece to the wearer. So look, I get that it's got a urethra, but having a urethra doesn't mean that it's anatomically accurate. Apparently the pendant's partially broken, but overall in good condition. The face of the pendant is well preserved, while the opposite side has more wear. Scandalo. It could be due to the worn side. This could be due to the worn side rubbing against the wearer, who would have suspended the pendant around the neck. Of course they would, love. Of course, that's where it's rubbing. Of course it is. Okay. Apparently, it's not just the world's oldest phallic artwork, but it's the earliest known sexed anthropomorphic representation. It predates other carvings of human genitalia, including the cave art vulvas, which sounds like a fun band. Who are we? We're the cave art vulvas. Someone make that band. They are from 37,000 years ago. Researchers haven't concluded the overall meaning behind what the piece is. It's hard to know its exact I am a child. It's possible this person wore a body ornament as a way to transmit information to others, showing their group identity, or they held it. It held a personal meaning for the wearer. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. I just okay. Can you imagine if someone's around your neck? Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. In addition to this phallic pendant, archaeologists also unearthed a pendant bead made from ostrich eggshells, additional stone pendants, and pieces of animal bones at the archaeological site. Cave Art Vulvas, an all-female punk band that opens for Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay. Love it. Right now, okay. I'm sure that it held meaning for the wearer, the holder, the user, the rubber, the scrubber. Right. Now then, our next ding dong is not actually phallus related. It is, though, about a ding dong. And I'm not looking to hate bait. I have checked this out. This dude's a ding dong. Ding dong. Tourist who carved his name into the Colosseum. He's one of ours. He's a Brit abroad, of course he is. He is a fitness trainer living in Britain. The identification was made using photographic comparisons, and the couple were not identified originally. We were just knowing they're a couple who are resident in England. However, the Daily Telegraph, or as we call it here, the Torygraph, did name him. You can read it if you like. I'm not going to say his name out loud. This is a 27-year-old fitness instructor and delivery driver who is originally from Bulgaria and who lives in Bristol. 27. Baby boy, you should know better than that. He was filmed by an onlooker, etching his and his girlfriend's name into the wall of the 2,000-year-old monument using a key to write Ivan plus Haley 2023. An angry bystander who filmed the incident asked, "Are you serious, man?" A video titled, I'm assuming, Arsehole Tourist, carved name into Colosseum in Rome, was uploaded to YouTube and it went viral. Look, in a world where people go viral on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram for being ding-dongs, why are you being a ding-dong? And the other thing I'm going to say is, as a fitness trainer, he almost certainly has a prolific social media, because most fitness trainers, to my experience, are on social media. So he knows better than this. He knows better than this. Yeah, I'm gonna bring out the ding dong bell for this and just do a full kind of Game of Thrones. Shame, shame, shame. But I don't want this guy to get his wee willy winky out. I don't want to. Shame, shame, shame. He can stay clothed. He does, doesn't he? Even though the face is blurred, you can see that this ding dong is smiling. He's smiling. Ding dong. So, let's move on to events and exhibitions. Yale's vast collection of millions of artworks and objects is now searchable online, and what I've put next to it is the Lux Yale Collections Discovery. So you can search through that. Both are linked in the description box and also on the Opera Pinboard, which is also linked in the description box. Check it out. If you find some cool stuff, let me know. Let us all know in the comment section. See what is going on. We have also got in Washington, D.C., Leonardo da Vinci. The exhibition is called Imagining the Future. Leonardo da Vinci in the Mind of an Italian Genius. The exhibition opened on June 21st, and it's going to run till August the 20th, 2023, and it's in the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. As with all exhibitions and events now, if I am able to find the accessibility information, that is linked both in the Opera Pinboard and also in the description box. So this one, there is accessibility information linked, so do check it out. If you go, let me know what you think. Next up is one that I'm making plans to go to. The National Portrait Gallery has reopened. I am very excited. The National Portrait Gallery is basically on Trafalgar Square. I spent a lot of time there. I've really missed being in the Renaissance galleries with the Renaissance portraits. I really need to go. I mean, I'll be honest, I will go see the stuff, but I am going to spend my first visit. I'm probably not going to go anywhere else apart from to see medieval and Renaissance portraits, paintings. I'm going to stay in those rooms for a while. I'm going to have just going to cuddle myself a little bit and be like, this is my happy place. I love all these things. So they may have to evict me. Not even sorry about it. So yeah, if you get a chance to go, if you've been to the National Portrait Gallery, let us know what you think. The newly reopened, I'm very, very excited. We have got 24 ancient bronzes that were found in Tuscany are going on display in Rome. Now, with this one, I couldn't find the accessibility information. because the website has got some translation into English, but the rest is in Italian. And also, when you click on this exhibition, which is called the God's Return at the Palazzo Quirinale, once you click on it, it becomes Italian again, and I unfortunately can't read Italian. But this opened on the 23rd of June, and it's going to run until the 25th of July. It's then going to close down for something, and it's then going to resume on the 2nd of September, and it's going to run from then until the 29th of October 2023. After this, these finds are going to be displayed in a museum that is currently being created near to Siena. We have got news about, in Madrid, Spain, the Royal Collections Gallery has just reopened over there. So there's lots of galleries reopening. It looks fabulous. They've got lots of information. So if you're going to be in Madrid, let us know what the new gallery space is like and what you're going to see there, all of the artifacts and portraits. Last, but by no means least, this is a recommendation. I am telling you, because I took my tiny tearaway there with my husband. The child needs wrangling. We can't go alone. We took him there on Saturday, the day it reopened. This is Young V&A, formerly the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green, and we just had the very best time. My son, as I said, is coming up 3. He'll be 3 in September. There is definitely stuff there for older kids as well. The way they've done it is, in many ways, there's stuff on the lower levels that is aimed at the younger kids. And then on the top level, there's loads of kind of creativity, art and design for older children. And they do also have an exhibition space. But I think the first exhibition is something to do with manga, but that isn't open yet. It will be soon. We just had the best day. If you are subscribed and clicked on all of the things, you should have got a notification of my community tab here on YouTube. I also put the pictures up on the Instagram as well, so make sure you're following me over there. I did do some pictures of our day of my little boy running around, tearing around. He had just had such fun. There's this space where there's a big screen, and every half an hour, I think, it shows various clips of performances, of singing, of stage shows, bits and pieces from Warhorse, all of that kind of stuff. And then it stops and you have the stage space free for you. And artists have made bits of costumes, so capes and crowns and all sorts of things that the children can put on and make their own show. And so there's a picture of my son he tried on about 4 different outfits. The only way that I could prize him away from the V&A was to promise him that I was going to buy him his own cape, and that had to happen. He now does have because he doesn't want a heavy cape. He's got like a gauzy cape with stars and moons all over it. It's his Elsa cape. And I also have bought him some blue Elsa gloves. So he has been wandering around our garden, letting it go left, right, and centre. So yeah, it was just fabulous. If you're in London, if this is free as well. I think the exhibition space may be paid for, but the rest of the museum is free. It's right next to Bethnal Green Tube. Absolutely phenomenal. Yes, so this is part of the V&A franchise. So it's now called Young V&A. National Portrait Gallery, why was it closed for renovations? I think it closed in 2019. Don't quote me on that. I think the closure coincided with plague, but I don't think it was motivated by plague. Yes, I think he may be. He appears to be a method actor, because I have most of the time with him saying things to me like, "Anna, I've got to go." And then he does the hands, he goes, "Stay away," like they do in Frozen, and he talks about going down the castle steps. But he also, you're not always sure which one he's talking about, because every now and again he comes up to me and tells me he's going to rip my dress, and those are his ribbons, because he's being the stepsisters from Cinderella. So you have to kind of think on your toes as to which which of the Disney universes you are in. I am slightly terrified because he has started talking longingly and lovingly about Uncle Scar. He also, his favorite character in Cinderella is the stepmother. So, but then he also today has started. Yesterday and today he started referring to me as mother, which feels very Norman Batesy. I'm not a fan of it, but it's happening. It's very much happening. And he did also. I don't think he enjoyed it. There was some historical dress, and he just gravitated towards it, face against the glass, just absolutely loved the historical costume. So, as my husband said, he wonders what part of his genetics have got into my son, because in terms of temperament, interest, general thesping about, he is just pure me. Pure me. I have yet to show my child the Disney classic Robin Hood. I feel that he will enjoy it. He may not share my love, my crush for Fox Robin Hood, but you know what? He can't be perfect. He can't be perfect. I've already found a musical theatre group that takes kids from 3. Trust and Believe from September. That kid is in musical theatre. Also gymnastics, because he is Captain Danger Pants. And for a very, very long time, the warning you were going to get that he was about to do something foolish was he would scream the word parkour. And you better be there, because that kid was launching himself just because he didn't care. He falls over, and there are times when he falls over, he goes down, and I think, oh, that's it. That's the one. That's the one. We're going to A&E. Nope. The kid's like RoboCop. Gets up, good to go, good to play again. Then he falls over, really bangs himself, has a little bit of a cry, stands up, and then goes, funny. Don't know. Yeah, my husband says that all that Gabriel got from him was a love of pizza and green eyes. He's not wrong. He is not wrong. He does have great vocabulary. He does. He does have great vocabulary. He knows all the dinosaurs. He corrects me on the dinosaurs, what they are. He can tell the difference between an Allosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus. I think it's based upon finger count. So yeah, he knows all of those, and he knows all of his animals as well. He does know all. We have plastic marine creatures. He can name the difference between all the whales and sharks. So he's going to be a marine biologist or an actor. We shall see. I'll keep you updated as to what's going to happen. No. Well, that's my tomorrow. Thanks. Fabulous. Thank you. Right. Right. So we have the book, the Funny Bones book, the one where they go to the dinosaur museum. He loves that. We took him to the Natural History Museum to see the Titanosaur exhibition. So they've got the big skeleton, and he was upset by skeletons. Did not want to go anywhere near it. Liked being in marine mammals, liked that. Liked looking at the shiny stones. Did not like dino bones. When we went previously and took him into the dinosaur gallery, was more all right. But yeah, not. He was very upset by the Titanosaur. He didn't like being around it. We'll see. We'll see. Time. He still has time. Right. Lovely people. Let me just remove this. That's what I've got for you, news-wise. Thank you ever so much, all of you, for taking the time to join me. My little ding-dong bells there. I do hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you have, or indeed, if you've just been here, why not hit the like button? Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure notifications turn up. You find notifications, that is the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button. Make sure you select all, because that way, when I put up community tab posts, which I'm going to do more often, about my adventures all around the place, you will see them because they'll be on the community tab. You can also find me on other social media. It's linked in the description box. I'm on TikTok, Twitter for now, and Instagram. Make sure that you are following me on those too. I have some fun stuff that's going to be announced coming up. So make sure you're following me to find out what I'm doing with my life. Also, an emoji. If you could put whatever news item jumped out at you, if you could pop that emoji in the chat and or in the comment section, because the more engagement a video gets, the more YouTube shares it out. The more YouTube shares the video out, the bigger this community can grow. I will be back on Friday for the premiere. That's probably going to be going live at 5 because I am at Hampton Court on Friday, so I won't be out necessarily in time for 4, so I can join in the live chat. So the premiere will be going up at 5, I think, with the live chat. Do make sure that if you can be there. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy it when you do get a chance to watch it. But for now, wherever you are on your Monday, I hope you're going to have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and I hope you're going to have a fabulous week, whatever you are up to. And I look forward to speaking to you in my pre-recorded video and indeed in my next History News Live. Thank you all very much, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.